Hi, and welcome to this Partner Showcase video. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm the Product Marketing Director in our Cloud Infrastructure Business Group at VMware. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Sungardas from Sungardas. Sungardas, let's just start with an introduction about you and yourself.
Pleasure, Guy. I'm happy to have the opportunity. So my name is Sungardas. I'm the lead cloud evangelist for North America for Sungardas Availability Services. I support prospects and customers that come to Sungardas and want to talk about industry trends in the cloud space and how to support the availability and resilience of their applications.
Okay, so you have a lot of customer experience there, which is fantastic, and that's going to help us today in this conversation. So let's talk a little bit about what Sungardas is all about. What is your presence? Where are you? And what type of services do you offer?
So we reside in the North American region and in EMEA, and we really centralize, like I said before, on providing support around the resilience and disaster recovery for workloads that are critical to a business. That obviously spans down from the application stack down to people. So there are offerings that we maintain beyond that so that people have a place to work and that people have a way to support assets that really aren't ready for a cloud model in both the production and recovery space. But it really allows you to focus on the end user experience and the application, which is what drives the outcome, right? The infrastructure is just what the outcome sits on.
Right, so you're taking away those challenges with operational kind of availability of applications and platforms and wrapping that up as a service. Is it a managed service, or do you do self-service in that respect for DR and other availability products?
We have options for both. Really, it's a RACI that's customizable, especially in the tumultuous marketplace that we see ourselves in certain verticals. So if you've got a team that has the capabilities and know-how to execute on the tools that we can provide, we'll be able to give you access and you could execute how you need to. But if there are gaps, we can offer that customized RACI that allows you to continue operations without missing a beat from a recovery and production perspective.
Now, obviously, if I'm replicating to cloud for DR as a service, I take it then you're able to provide many more sort of cloud services if I decide to then, fail over into your cloud or effectively migrate into your cloud.
Yeah, actually, vCloud Director Availability is a big component of that. It's allowed us to come up with a service and solution set that can enable businesses to maintain resilience on any production VMware architecture that they have in place. And should they so choose, maintain operations on a VMware platform so they don't have to worry about relearning or re-executing operational components and continue to run business if they want to maintain that kind of financial structure, because that's really what cloud is, right? Or if they want to transition back to the traditional architecture that they have or cloud platforms leveraging VMware that they originally were leveraging, they can easily do so with what we can offer from vCloud Director Availability.
So it's like start replicating the cloud, cut over to cloud. You can bring some stuff back. It's not a problem. I mean, that's quite a unique value proposition in itself, right?
Yeah, and it's something that a lot of businesses frankly struggle with because while we're all considering what we want our production operational structure to be and how you're going to incorporate cloud, because it does play a very vital role and it's a fantastic fit for specific use cases, you can't forget about the resilience associated to that, right?
Yeah.
And that adds additional cost and complexity. So when a provider like ourselves can come in and provide a business continuity option that allows you to maintain a lot of the same solution stack and technology that can be promoted to production and allow you to continue to run in that capacity as long as you need to or indefinitely, that fills a big gap, right? And allows you to really focus in on business operations, especially when things happen.
Yeah, and you're right. It's when we see the classic guy, and let's talk about this in context of your typical customer who's got an IT department struggling to keep up with business as normal, and what we see is a lot of sprawl of virtualization, whether that's VMs in their own cloud or containers even in their own cloud, or VMs and containers in other clouds, hyperscaler clouds as well, which obviously costs them money. But critically, it's the ability for IT to keep up with what the business is doing and keep supporting the business. they might be able to roll out the infrastructure fast enough if they're lucky in their own cloud. But actually making sure then that infrastructure is protected and covered whilst they're trying to keep up with their business is critical, because the VM estate doesn't stop growing. It's a constant growth rate.
Well, and frankly, right, given where we are in the marketplace in the world, we're all operating at the speed of convenience, because we've been forced through world events to really re-examine our operational models. And technology and IT, to your point, has been burdened with maintaining pace. So when you start to factor in the complexities that we've addressed earlier in our conversation around how you'd go about that from a production perspective to prevent sprawl, and now you layer on resilience on top of it as another critical component of what you need to execute on, but at the same time, try to run day-to-day operations, it can be challenging, So it's just nice to have somebody you could work with that can streamline those components and really bring that expertise to bear.
Yeah, so those are obviously some of the kind of key challenges as far as the DR kind of capability and high availability, the availability componentry is concerned. What are some of the other sort of surrounding challenges that you see your customers talking to you about in your market?
No, good question. So two of the ones that come up regularly are people adjusting to specific logistical challenges or shortages to get the hardware necessary to support growth, right? And it's caused the lens to really widen on where cloud technology is applicable and really makes sense. So you have a lot of people who have accelerated their journey to embrace cloud and embrace cloud-like models because they have no choice, frankly. And when you compound that with other, I'll say, market-related phenomenons, like I don't know if you've heard of this terminology before, the Great Resignation, where vital skill sets in an organization are now transitioning because maybe they want to change their career because they have the opportunity to, because a lot of places are letting you work remote now.
Yeah,
you're going to end up having those issues compound because you have skill gaps that are going to prevent you from making that transition. Right. So when we talk about those two interesting factors that are usually well outside of the framework that you're used to dealing with in these kinds of discussions, it adds a layer of complexity and really intrigue to how you would go about helping that transition path. Because while everybody's a snowflake, nobody's a snowflake, right? There's still going to be coinciding factors in each one of these transitions that are going to play a consistent theme in how you execute in supporting these kinds of activities. And having the right people and technologies to support that transition and a customized RACI to deliver on it is really the only way I can see to operate in a market where we're going to have to deal with these kinds of variables.
And you're absolutely right. Being a cloud provider, you guys have the skills, and you have a lot of the skills and resources. As you say, a lot of them have gone from the market. Some of them have gone completely into different careers, and we're seeing a lot of that as well. But what we do see, and the successful cloud providers are the ones who are building up those skills and resources themselves to support their customers, but also building up the vendor relationships, making sure they've got the relationships that, if customers looking for something like a data lake service, maybe, sure, you guys can provide the infrastructure for it, but are you able to provide the skills and resources for it? Do you get that from a partner? And that's equally important, having that kind of strategy around relationships and commercial model to support it. But then you raise another interesting point: hardware, getting actual hardware. Who would have thought that would actually become an issue and a challenge where, I guess it's the companies with the biggest buying power getting the biggest focus and priority, as well as obviously discounts, and you're able to pass those on to your customers, which I imagine a lot of times that's going to work out a lot cheaper for them, is it?
I mean, it could, right? Because back to use cases, if you don't mind me pulling back into the conversation a little bit.
Sure.
The challenge is we can talk about technology, and technology is good. And frankly, you can look across a lot of these technology offerings and see a lot of parallels, right? But each one of them has a different financial model and a level of transformation associated to it. Right. And specifically with VMware, the reason why we looked to incorporate that into our private cloud offering is because it allows us to support the requirements of a business and give them access to that cloud financial model with a reduced amount of transformation initially, with some capabilities that are more advanced as their application starts to transition and become more cloud native, and a financial model and structure that doesn't require a lot of complex quantum analytics to figure out, right? And then over time, if we do find use cases where there are other options where maybe a hyperscaler would be a great play, there's ways to transition that workload across those platforms so that they don't miss a beat, right? And we could focus on the best outcome for the use case and not the limitations of the technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a matter of having the and the VMware footprint. You know, VMware is the market leader in all of the customer bases for their on-premise equipment, whether that's cloud or just, you know, IT equipment that they've been using, and has been for what, 15, 20 years. Obviously, going from VMware vSphere into a cloud provider that's providing vSphere, that's the smoothest onboarding that you can have. There's no disk conversions, there's no different structures or anything. A learning curve that you should be fairly familiar with. You know, it's not a completely different kind of level of network and security you're going to have to learn. So things should be very easy, which means you get a rapid onboarding, you get a rapid time to value, which you know, as far as cloud is concerned, is essential. And how does, you know, we're talking about disaster recovery and migration to the cloud. How's your experience been with using our cloud provider DR solution as well as a migration solution, Cloud Director Availability, which many customers probably haven't heard of, right? They'll have heard of the big guys like Veeam and Zerto and all those chaps, but now you're coming along with Cloud Director Availability, and how's that being kind of used and perceived by customers?
Well, I mean, to your point, initially there are some conversations around what it is, right? Everybody recognizes VMware, and to your point, and I like time to value, right? That's a big thing with us, recognizing time to value efficiently and quickly. It allows that to take place. And when customers are exposed to the fact that they don't have to worry about another data mover with other tool sets that have to be integrated into a transition or to business continuity, it kind of provides a sigh of relief. Because here's the reality of the situation. And don't get me wrong, we use some of the tools that you had mentioned, you know, previously, but each one of those tools is subject to development lag, because as VMware creates new features and functions, right, we choose to do that with the technology that I've highlighted, because we don't want a situation where a customer can't take advantage of the latest and greatest that VMware can bring to bear, right? Because as new functions come out, those data movers and those technologies aren't going to be able to account for them until they're released, and they're not going to be able to provide a consistent support model across migration and, you know, business continuity like we've discussed. Right. And frankly, interestingly enough, by leveraging vCloud Director Availability, we've minimized that gap. So if you've got specific components you're using around containerizations or V applications or other VMware functions, you know, the time to recognize that value is very quick.
Yeah, you raise a really good point there. So all the latest features and capabilities are inherently linked because it's all coming from VMware. You haven't got that 6 to 9 month lag whilst your other vendor builds in that capability into their solution. And obviously you have then the interoperability with the rest of the VMware stack, which is something that I think is a high value. I mean, cloud verified based on a VMware Cloud Foundation stack. You know, that is all something that VMware tests, approves, and secures, and then delivers as an architectural specification or as a hyper-converged appliance to a service provider who then provides their cloud services to customers. And you're getting all of that goodness pulled through because you're using the VMware solution. Do you want to kind of give me an example, perhaps, of an interesting customer story that you may want to share in terms of either a business continuity or a migration where you used the tool set successfully and had a good customer outcome?
Great question. So Recently, we've worked with some very large providers using some of our legacy services, right? Because we had some older VMware architecture leveraging a cloud offering that we had. And they had a very aggressive migration timeline and wanted to make sure that they can embrace some of the newer offerings that VMware would bring to bear. And they also had real estate and architecture residing in other satellite locations that they acquired through mergers and acquisitions, right?
Okay.
So we took it as an opportunity to really take a step back and look at the direction of the organization and the sprawl of assets that were really supporting the entirety of the organization. And we identified that if we could incorporate vCloud Director Availability, it would allow us to cut a ton of time off of the migration component of the environment, because the client could quickly assess what's going on using some of the tool sets that we've talked about and execute the migration themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because they had the expertise in-house and they didn't have to worry about the reconstitution, decoupling, or transformation associated with making an application cloud native that typically comes with looking at one of those other cloud platforms. And as a result, we were able to get them in to their environment. I mean, we were talking in upwards of 300-400 VMs, give or take, in a 30-day period. And that's mainly because we had to deal with MX windows and provisioning timelines to, make sure the network and everything was configured appropriately, right?
Yeah.
And they were able to reduce a ton of machines once they got into the platform, just through general attrition optimization and some of the features and functionalities afforded to them. And more importantly, maintain that same technology that they use for the migration and they love so much as their business continuity solution to another facility that reside in North America, right? So a great tool allowed efficient migration, and we maintained the same strategy that allowed them to have business continuity. So really efficient for them, and they love the fact that they learned a skill set that just didn't die because they had to use it once, or it would only show up when we had to do another integration if they bought a company.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great story, and I think there's a lot of value in what you're saying, having that that comfort that the tool set you're using is able to provide multiple functions. Number one, migration, warm and cold, and DR, and now in the latest version we have recovery plans. We have a 1-minute RPO, which is extremely fast. If you're looking at mission critical stuff, and a lot more flexibility in terms of how we store our replicas, and that then that can be a great way of introducing a customer to your cloud platform, your capability, and giving them that control, because they don't need to access your platform. They can drive it all from their vSphere plugin if they wanted to. It's a synchronous product. They run it from either end. And then, like you say, once they make a decision to move into cloud, they can use the same tool then to drive business continuity to another endpoint, perhaps another cloud you run, in another site, or a site of their choice, or back to their on-prem. So a lot of flexibility. Okay, so let's just I guess focus on the broader play then. So if we've got customers who are providing or utilizing business continuity from you guys into your cloud and decide to move into your cloud, what additional kind of VMware offerings and portfolio do you have that they can use and consume, and anything in the pipeline that may be of interest in that respect?
So we've embraced the vCloud Director approach to delivering production architecture as well, right? So because of that, it really has afforded them, the client, to really take advantage of the VMware stack. So NSX networking, like I had mentioned before, V applications, which have been around for a while, but you can do a lot of interesting things with. And the things that we're looking to incorporate, and I'm rather excited about, is how we're going to be deploying containerization, right? Because clients can deploy containers today. You can deploy a container anywhere. It's about the orchestration associated with the container management and the automation that you have to execute to really make containers efficient. And rather than have to incorporate a third-party scripting mechanism or an orchestration tool, what Tanzu can bring to the table really is a game changer, right? So we're looking and evaluating at what that role will be as we support not only production, but recovery operations, so that, as I had highlighted before, it's a seamless transition, right? Where if there are changes, they're good changes that allow you to focus in a crisis or in a event, because anything can happen that requires you to make that kind of transition, on the things that matter, which is the application, your end users, and the overall client experience.
Yeah. So more to come in really building out the DevOps cloud, dev-ready cloud capability at the endpoint. And great to see you using Tansy for that. There's lots of really good integration with Cloud Director, which I'm sure will provide your customers with a lot of value. Okay, so let's start just wrapping up then. If you can provide your unique value proposition, you think about what Sungardas does and how you're engaging with customers, how would you wrap that up and package that? If I said to you, right, what's your unique value proposition? What do you really see customers coming to Sungardas for?
So it's really just allowing them to focus on the application and the end user experience, and having someone that can support that life cycle of delivering that outcome across that multiple mediums as it evolves. Because anybody can support an application in a given time, right? But to the point I made earlier, we're operating at the speed of convenience now. And if you can't match the demand of the market and be as convenient as possible, you're going to go the way of the dinosaurs. And we're a provider that can enable you to do that.
All right, so meet your business objectives, meet your business outcomes in cloud, and really help you on that journey, right? As you start looking at your on-premise equipment or your resources in other clouds that also need the same level of continuity and management, bringing that all together end to end.
100%.
Excellent. All right, Service. And lastly then, how should customers get in touch with you guys and find out more information?
So you can always check us out on our website, www.sungardas.com. And we do have a general phone number if somebody uses that anymore, even though we've got great chat functions and the ability to do virtual calls like we're doing now. It's 866-714-7209.
It sounds like you memorized that one.
Yeah, I try my best. I use it occasionally.
Excellent. Service, thank you very much for your time today. It's been really enlightening for me to learn about Sungardas, and I'm sure our customers will find it as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate having the time.